Friday, March 24th, 2023. Welcome to a new backcountry snowpack summary brought to you by North Shore Rescue. Doesn't seem to be able to decide whether it's still winter or spring. Yesterday it felt very wintry. We had some snow. It was quite convective, so the amount of snow that we got on the North Shore varies quite a bit from where we are today. We're seeing anywhere between about 5 to maybe 20 centimeters of snow, but I suspect there's probably places that have a little bit more. And all of that snow is sitting on a crust, but the bond seems to be pretty good. Now, the name of the game this weekend is the weather. There's convective flurries, there's sunny breaks, so we expect the conditions to change quite rapidly, and probably a little bit of everything as far as avalanche activity, but all in this small range. Now, one of the things to consider is that crust that's underneath is really quite hard. So if you get taken off your feet by a small avalanche, you might actually go for a pretty fast ride and might be difficult to stop. So it's definitely in a terrain management. Consider your exposure and what happens to you if you take a fall or if you get knocked off your feet. So if you want to know more about the snowpack and what we've seen this morning, please stick around for the snowpack discussion. We're on an east aspect of 1,200 meters. And so what we have here, this is the snow that fell yesterday and a little bit overnight. So here we have 18 centimeters. And I think that probably throughout the North Shore, you will find that the depth of the new snow is quite variable. If you looked at it on the radar as it was happening, it was very spotty. So, in our weather stations, not very far from here, we only had 8 centimeters this morning. There's 18 here. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's areas where you could find pockets that maybe reach up to 30 centimeters. Now, all of this is sitting pretty much on all aspect on a crust. It was very spring-like this week. So all of that snow is sitting on a crust. The good news here is that this morning we went out trying to trigger avalanches. While skiing, all we could get was dry loose moving. But with air blasts from explosives, we could actually get slab avalanches to happen, but they were really shallow, 5 to 10 centimeters, but they were sliding within the new snow. They weren't actually sliding too much on the crust. So when the storm started yesterday, what was falling was just like cement, and I think that the bond to the crust is generally pretty good. So what's going to be a little bit tricky as we get into the weekend is the weather is pretty finicky. So we have these little convective flurries and sunny breaks and all of this. So, you could find areas where you're going to have like small, shallow slabs. If the sun hits it for a little while, you're likely going to see wet, loose activity. It's going to remain fairly cold. So on shady aspect, you're probably going to see a little bit of dry, loose activity. So you can expect a little bit of everything, but everything pretty small. So while this is not a huge avalanche concern, there is certainly no shortage of SAR calls of people who got hurt, sometimes seriously hurt, getting knocked off their feet by small avalanche into steep terrain and hitting trees or falling off cliffs and such. So you just want to be mindful. The conditions will be changing. Everything that we expect is going to be pretty small, but you have to factor in the consequences that are related to the terrain you're in. Other than that, the crust that is underneath that formed during the week is really strong. It's quite good bridging. And then underneath here on this east aspect, we definitely have a snowpack that's starting to feel more like spring. There's quite a bit of moisture in it here, and we have that old crust that's somewhere down there around maybe 90 to 100 around here. So no real concern below the crust that was on the surface a couple of days ago. That's all I got for this week. Stay safe, stay smart, and we'll see you next week.